Welcome to the PranaTech Podcast. Charles Rose is on stage today. Charles, please introduce yourself, how you're doing, and tell the audience about you.
Yeah, Amit, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me. I am a coach. I coach CEOs, business leaders, entrepreneurs around all of the different aspects of life and all of the internal work they need to do to be effective in their business.
Wow. Okay. So, when we spoke last time, you started your career in the tech environment, and then you were there for X amount of years, and then you kind of transitioned into this kind of coaching.
For
And
sure.
then I guess I have questions we couldn't touch upon it. One is tech to coaching, and what's the difference between executive coach and a life coach?
So in my mind, your internal work is your internal work. It's very similar. Usually, a life coach is taking a broad view of life, whereas and coaching you on that. Whereas an executive coach is also incorporating all of the aspects that fall on you as an executive, as a entrepreneur, as a business person, because that is a whole extra set of demands on your time and your energy. It's a whole different set of commitments in addition to your normal life. So to me, that's the difference. They'll both get into looking at deep thoughts and what your limiting beliefs and how do you get clear about, what you want in life. It's the executive piece that takes that into the business world as well.
Got it, got it. So, but how did you learn these things? So, going from tech to these things, like, I guess it's like an intuitive feeling, like you just kind of know what it feels like. And then, like, you kind of apply those feelings from your previous success, if you could touch upon that. But also, was that kind of influential of what you want to do for other people?
Big time. Because before that, I thought achievement was where it was at in the world. I thought that was what I needed to do was make a ton of money and start a company, grow it and sell it, and then retire off the money.
Yeah.
And it turned out that wasn't remotely, it didn't feel remotely like I thought it was going to. And some of that was because I hadn't done any of my own personal work.
Hmm. But were you the founder or of these companies, or or a co-founder? Like what made you think that this wasn't enough for you in terms of like a satisfaction or like a purpose or a mission? Like, why did you feel that way?
So I was a co-founder on the last one and on some others. However, what I got to was an incredible moment of excitement and rush and sense of achievement that lasted like a week or two. And then I started to have these second thoughts around, oh my God, do I really deserve this? Did I work hard enough for this? Um, Making my dad proud wasn't as fulfilling deeply as I thought it might be. And so there was this sense of, good Lord, I have made a very strong miscalculation in terms of where my life I thought was supposed to be going.
Yeah, yeah, it's very powerful. But did you have some sort of expectation growing up, saying, Charles Rose had to be at the stage to kind of prove something to family members, or, why did you feel like you had to be at a certain level and then transition? Like, what made you do that?
I think the culture around my family was very much achievement oriented. My dad was a U.S. congressman. My grandfather, his dad had been the mayor of the town and was a lawyer. His dad had been a lawyer. They named me Charles Grandison Rose the Fourth, if you can
Yeah,
believe that. And with a name like that, you feel like I have to make a difference in the world. I have to, and my God, my dad's in Congress. He's, on television doing shows. He's doing interviews, and I'm thinking, I need to do something with my life, you know.
wow, yeah. I mean, that's I think a lot of that's in different cultures as well. In the Indian culture, I think you know, obviously a lot of families come here, they immigrate here from India at a early age, and like they struggle, like my parents did. And obviously when you struggle like that, you expect certain like you're investing in the kids, right? You're investing
Sure.
in the environment. And back in the late '80s, my parents came here,
Hmm.
and my dad has an interesting story. My dad, convinced his two best friends to quit their jobs in 1979 to travel the world on bicycles, believe it or not.
That is so wild. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what
And
courage it would take to just be like, I'm going to go ride a bicycle around the world.
yeah, and like, to ride a bicycle, you need balance, right?
Totally.
And there was no balance from his family at the time because they were like, look, what are you doing? We need your help at home. I don't think you're gonna get too far. My grandpa was pissed, and
Hmm.
I got this on LinkedIn, and it's very powerful because a lot of his family members too was like, dude, you're not gonna go too far.
Hmm.
Like, what are you
Hmm.
doing?
Hmm.
And he's like, well, we want to try. So they bought three bicycles with the little money they had, and I don't even know. It's like less than 50 rupees at the time. It was a lot of money because every rupee counted. Now $1 is equivalent to like 83, 84 rupees, and you can still get a good meal out of it. But the point is that back then, you can do a lot more with less,
Yes.
and the value was more, right? Call it inflation, call it what do you really want. We can define these things, but they bought three bicycles, and you know what? They explored 47 countries in 3 years.
That's amazing. Wow. Wow.
And they met a lot of interesting people, politicians, Indira Gandhi, a lot of very influential
Wow.
people, Ratan
Wow.
Tata.
Yep.
And, these people at the time were very, very, they were growing in themselves, but they were still had a stage. And they met them. And who was my dad at the time? Who were his best friends? They were just people,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
We're all human. Right? But those people, they had like a humility to themselves that they still gave them that stage to come and say, "Hello, how are you doing?"
Yes.
And I
Yes.
don't think like that like these days. Like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, because you work with a lot of influential people, in your realm. But like, I don't think that kind of humility is on stage these days. What do you think?
Oh, at all. At all. I think very much the service aspect has been lost in a lot of political leadership, and people need to remember the whole idea is to serve, to be a public servant. And that gets lost somewhere in the message, I find.
Yeah, yeah, and like um, Ratan Tata sir, or Ratan Tata ji, as a lot of people in India would call him, which means like a sign of respect,
Hmm.
as an elder or as an equal, right?
Hmm.
Saying that we respect you, but you respect me, mutual respect.
Exactly.
Um, he did a lot for my dad. He
Hmm.
actually me a lot, through my dad. I would say vicariously saying right now, but then even back then, when I was trying to apply to colleges, um, Mr. Tata actually tried to get me into Cornell with a
Oh my God,
recommendation.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that.
I didn't get in though,
Huh.
but
Well,
my SATs were too low. And I'm not gonna say what it was because people are gonna be like, "Oh, it's you're not worthy." Well, I'm not worthy anyway,
oh,
because they lost it.
SATs were a thing.
Yeah. And well, here's the thing now. What's going on with a lot of these colleges? Oh, no one's accepting SATs anymore. I
Hmm.
wonder why. Because
Hmm.
that's not a reflection of what a brilliant person is. And I'm not brilliant. I'm just logical.
Right. Right.
So it's one of these things where we have a lot of respect for him and his family and what they do in terms of philanthropy, and like you see the cascade effect that he has throughout the whole world there in India,
Absolutely.
all throughout the world, and the respect is there. So like tell me about your dad. I'm sure you met a lot of influential people.
For sure. So, I was born in North Carolina, and when I was 6, my dad got elected to the U.S. Congress. So we moved to Northern Virginia, and that's where I grew up. And it was a lot of people in my high school. Their parents were dignitaries, or I was on the bus with Brzezinski's kids, he was very popular at the time, and I mean, I got to meet Jimmy Carter when he was president because he was a Democrat, and so was my dad. We were invited to the White House for certain things like the Easter egg hunt every year and that kind of thing, which was amazing. But for me, my dad was gone so much that it was sort of bittersweet because it was like the price of all that was not having as much dad around, like he was before he was elected. So, um, yeah, it was always a bit of a trade-off.
Yeah. No, it's very influential. I mean, Jimmy Carter. I think it's crazy how what he's been throughout his political career and then post political
God, yes.
career.
Yes.
What do you think about that? I'm just curious.
I think he has always had kind of a servant mindset, and I think he's always wanted to create change. And I think growing up as a farmer taught him a lot of very powerful lessons and principles around hard work, and then the timing of nature and what it needs in terms of creating systems for humans and looking at what we need. And I think his work has gone past his presidential career into still in a space of giving. How do I give back to the world? How can I be of service? With what I've learned, with my perspective, which would be very rare, how can I continue to serve people?
Absolutely. I think I like to use this term. I don't know if it exists or not. I think I just made it up. Maybe I was dreaming about it. I call it a karmic cascade,
Hmm.
right? And this is what Mr. Tata did as well. And he gave back so much. 10 times, 50 times, 100 times came back to him,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then he kept getting back, and it kept coming back.
Yes,
And that's the value he built, right? If you look at the way the media presents him, you know how powerful the media is these days. They could,
definitely.
it's very biased in either direction, but he has such a purity to him because of his work and what he's done and the relationships, right? The relationships that he's
Definitely.
formed, not only with influential people, but people like my dad. I think my dad's influential, but he's not a politician. He's not, he's not a tech giant. He's not Steve Jobs.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not Tim Cook, right? But the point is that he still respected those people like he was an equal,
Yes.
and that's power, right?
Well, it is, and that's a spiritual principle, and that's someone living that spiritual principle that we are all equal, and to the degree that you feel in politics that service is the way to go, it's like you're serving yourself when you're serving other people. And there's a strong belief that you see also in the world that we're all isolated, that we're all separate, and that I need to get for me because, and you'll have to try to get for you, and we're in competition. And it's like, to me, that stems from a very primal sense of being separate. Whereas the people, the leaders that you're talking about, know that we're all connected. They know that we're all equal. And they're putting their energy into that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll touch upon like Hinduism, right?
Mm,
I'm not a super religious person, but I'm very spiritual, and I think Hinduism is kind of the Western uh semantic for the religion, right? But there's
mm,
a, there's,
mm,
there's a deeper term to it, and it's called Sanatana Dharma, which means you do the righteous thing
mm,
without really realizing your caste, your sect, or what your monetary value is. Like
yeah,
you are
yeah,
you, I am I, right? We're all
yes,
born the same way, right? And we all die the same
definitely,
way. And
definitely.
that's I won't touch upon more about that because this is not about religion, but the point is that it's the principles, right? And they're
Hmm.
the people who follow the same principles without actually knowing that it exists, 5,000, maybe 10,000 years ago.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
powerful. And I follow those same principles. People reach out to me a lot, and I keep saying this. I try to respond to every one of them. I don't care who they are. You know
yeah,
why?
yeah.
If I inspire one person to do something very special, that's all I need in life.
Well, and there's that
So,
cascade that can start from one act, one thing.
so is that what you do in a sense of a coach? Like, how do you inspire people? How do you make them like 1%, half a percent? I'm not talking about inflation,
Yes.
but if you say 1%, I think someone's gonna come and like tackle me right now.
Yeah, 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 totally.
Yeah.
Um, I think we very much look at what principles does the person live, and are they in conflict? Because it might be a number of very positive principles, then a limiting belief that's like, I don't deserve that. I can't have that, you know? Um, and we go back and look at, well, what was the childhood environment that set that up? And very often a job as a parent is twofold. It's to tell your child, you're the most important thing to me in the world. I love you with all my heart. I'm so glad you're here. And pick up your room, do your homework, say yes or no, sir. All the behavioral things that we need to become more skillful at. But a lot of parents lean into the pushing their kids to achieve. And then so the result is the belief that we're not enough. And so we're always chasing that not enough, and it's bottomless until we realize, no, we're innately enough. We're built from love. there's always plenty of room to increase our skillfulness, so we should keep working on that in all areas. But we have to know and be grounded in that sense of love and sense of knowing that we have a place in the world.
Yeah,
With that, you can do anything.
I agree. I agree. I think that's a very good perspective because I think a lot of people fail to understand that perspective because of their perception
Yes,
based on what they've seen, right?
yes,
They've
yes,
grown up. And I think comparison is a thief of joy. Do you agree?
yes, God, yes. Well, because we don't know the context that
Yeah.
someone's operating in. We always assume that someone has it easier or better or just because the outward appearance is such. And it's like, no, it can be it can be horrible inside some of those, environments.
Yeah.
It can also be
I just
wonderful.
think, yeah, I think, talk about failures, please, Charles. Like, talk about like not only your failures, but like, you work with a lot of influential people in their own ways. Obviously, like,
Yes.
I don't want to put that into a context, but they are high-powered people in their
Oh
environments,
yeah.
correct? So talk about that. Like, how do they reach out to you? How do you reach out to them? Like, how does it work? Like, how could if I didn't know Charles Rose, how could I even touch you in terms of like, LinkedIn or even email or saying, I slide into your DMs.
Yes. So for me, just it would be easy to find me on my website, which is charlesrose.coach. You can also look at me on LinkedIn if you search for Charles Rose Coach. Um, but it's easy. And what were you saying before, though? I wanted to answer your prior question, which was about um,
Failure.
failure. Thank you. So I think failure is how we learn. If you watch a toddler learning to walk, it's constant failure, but they're resilient. And sometimes they get frustrated and cry, and sometimes they just get up and try it again. And eventually we learn to walk. And it's like, it's that principle. But then somewhere when we get older and we become more self-conscious, we become afraid to fail. And it's like, this is how we learn. I had a friend recently that I met who said that their parents said, what did you fail at today? And you had to come up with something every day. And he would be awesome to this woman, good for you for failing at that because you learned something. And
Yeah,
it's like making failure, you know, science is full of failed experiments that gets to a good one. Business is full of failed experiments that finally get to a good ROI. We have to keep trying.
I agree. Like Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Amen.
I
Amen.
hope it wasn't. You tell me. I'm not pulling you hold, by the way. I promise.
That's more of the alien conversation. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of these things. Like I love history, history
Yeah,
that was
same.
years, 200 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 5,000 years, right? And I think a lot of the principles that go from, for me, like, I love the Mahabharata.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, People say it was written 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. It could have been before that. We
Mhm.
just don't, we know, but we don't know.
Mhm.
Right? And a lot of these principles go across the realm. Like my three favorite books. So one is an epic poem, which is the Mahabharata, and then Meditations, right?
Mhm.
Marcus Aurelius, and then Tuesdays with Maury.
Wow.
So you
That's
see that
amazing.
the transition from 5,000 to, I
Mhm.
forgot one, so it was 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and then Tuesdays with Maury was not too long ago. Mitch Album, very
Mhm.
powerful
Mhm.
book, very spiritual book,
Oh yeah.
very emotional book, right?
Yeah. Well, but then the times change and we get a little bit ahead of ourselves with technology and we think those principles no longer apply. And it's like, yeah, but we're still human. They do apply. That sense that we're all equal, that principle of being honest, of building trust, of being generous, and so forth. They're universal.
Yeah, it is. It's all interconnected. I think people fail to realize that. I mean, I don't expect people to connect the dots from X amount of years ago to X amount of years to now,
Mhm.
but it's learn from history that was recent, you
That's
know?
kind of the point of history is it's like there are lessons there that we've hard won over times, with lots of war and suffering and so forth. And it's like, let's not forget those.
But let's remember the good times. Let's remember Pax Romana.
Who?
Pax Romana, 200 years of golden age.
Right,
That
right,
was
right.
really
Yes, yes,
the,
yes.
the Romans.
Totally,
Do as the
totally.
Romans do, right?
Exactly.
But in that
In some
realm,
ways.
200 years is a long time.
Mhm. It is. It
So
is and it's not when you think about, there were mature societies like the Egyptians many thousands of years ago. That always blows my mind.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, a lot of these things they fascinate me because, like, I would say like many people, even in the Western culture, don't even know the I would say what's really going on with a lot of the architecture in India. And
Hmm.
these are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago that are
Hmm.
intricate, and I've been to Machu Picchu,
Wow.
right? I've been to all these
Yep.
places, but like I'm comparing it to Machu Picchu. I don't like to compare things, but the point is that a lot of these societies existed, and
Hmm.
like people don't talk about it, right? And it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's like, we're not comparing. We're saying that these things existed, but they're all interconnected.
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
So it's one of those things that it's debatable what people say what it is, but like it doesn't matter. I still respected Machu Picchu. One of the best trips of my life.
That's
Seeing the
awesome.
stars without light pollution,
Hmm.
the Milky
Hmm.
Way. I would do it again.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's
I've heard
minus spiders.
amazing things from people that
Show
went.
up with
So,
spiders.
yeah. That sounds like quite an adventure, I will say.
And I got Spider Man right here too next to me. So, but
Perfect.
still,
Perfect.
I don't want to get bit by one.
I hear you.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where I guess it makes you kind of get perspective on like what these people did many centuries ago, and it still
Yes.
exists.
Yeah, absolutely.
You ever had one of those like spiritual trips?
Definitely. I went
No pun
to,
intended, by the way. Sorry.
yeah, for me, it was going to Brazil and going to Iguazu Falls, and
Yeah.
just the nature there was breathtaking. It was absolutely amazing. And then going through Brazil, ultimately to the coast, to Florianopolis, and then going through a spiritual retreat that involved drinking ayahuasca. It was incredibly powerful.
Wow. All right. I'm gonna call you Aaron Rodgers from now on.
I
He's
love
doing
it.
okay in my fantasy team, but that's a different story. But that's wow. So
Yeah,
like, when was this?
this was in 2009, I think. I went with a couple other friends, but
When
it
I
was a
got rejected
very,
by Cornell. Great. Same time where you were doing ayahuasca, I got rejected by Cornell.
oh, right on.
Sorry. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. But I guess talk about your connections to like very influential tech people.
So when my dad got elected to the U.S. Congress, one of the things he was very interested in was technology. He was always into new technology. In fact, they put a picture of him in the Washington Post in God, this would have been the late 80s, I think, in an electric car. He actually bought an all electric vehicle and drove it to vote at the Capitol from his parking space in the Longworth building. And I always thought that was I was always proud of him for that because he was very ahead of his time. Influential people, he eventually became chairman of the House Administration Committee. House Administration oversees all the tech on the Hill and all the office equipment. To sell to an office, you have to be on the list, and my dad's committee controlled the list. So companies would come up and pitch Congress on, I want to get on the list, Hewlett Packard, that kind of thing. Well, Apple came up, and Steve Jobs came to the Hill to pitch Congress on using Apple hardware. And so my dad said, "Do you want to meet Steve Jobs?" And after my brain exploded, I said, "Of course, duh." And it's like, so he set me up a phone call. He said he'll call you at this time. You'll have this much time. Have three questions prepared. Be respectful, and all that. So I'm like, "Yes, sir, no problem." And we did the call, and it was like it changed my life just being around his energy. I had never in my life been in touch with someone who had more passion, perspective about his energy on his industry and what he was doing. Um, it was just inspiring to hear how passionate he was, how knowledgeable. I had several questions about the Apple II Plus, and he just rattled it off like, no, you need to do this, go to this vendor, find this thing. I had a question about music. He was like, this board is the best there is. You want to get that and this software. And I'm just like, wow, God. So that inspired me to go into technology, and I started life as a programmer.
Wow, that's why. But why do people kind of, I would say, define him as crazy? Like, why that term?
Well, because it's so far from the normal belief systems that people hold to. You know, they think different thoughts. That's why that Apple campaign was so powerful of think different, is change all starts at the level of thought. I think Einstein said that. So one of my biggest jobs with people is assessing what are your core thoughts and which of those are real and which of those are false. Because anything based on fear, we're going to look at changing.
Fair, fair. So you applied that experience or experiences with those people to your current kind of a coaching mechanism.
Absolutely, because one of the most powerful things we have as people is modeling. As parents, we're constantly modeling for children. They're watching, they're listening. How do we do this? How do we navigate life? So when someone like Steve Jobs models for me, hey, number one, we can be connected. You know, we can talk. And it's like, wow, I have a connection to that. Then that's possible for me too. I too get to think differently.
Right, very fair. And I think like kids these days, they have so much leverage because of technology, right?
Well, and challenged because I didn't have, I mean, I'm 58 and it's like growing up, we didn't have all the interruptions. It got boring, you know, as a kid when I was little. You had to come up with stuff to do. Kids right now are inundated with interruptions constantly. So it's very hard. You're not trained to focus on things for great bits of time. And it turns out we need that in life. So it becomes a practice to learn how to focus.
It's interesting how the paradigm changes, right?
Yeah, God, yeah. Well, and
Like,
that's the thing is that Steve Jobs brought that technology in as a gift, thinking it would revolutionize the world, and it did. However, it also increased the need for some of our spiritual practice to reground ourselves, to bring us back to who we really are.
yeah. But who gave him a chance? Tell me. Like, why did Steve Jobs deserve a chance? I mean, it's a subjective question, but like, why did he even deserve to be Steve Jobs to get to Apple? And then I know he went back and forth and a lot of things, but like, and from your perspective, I would say like, you work with a lot of like these people that didn't deserve a chance, but they got it. But why did those people deserve that chance? What did they do that's special to get that chance? Because I want that
First,
chance too, by the way.
first, first, he believed it was possible. And that takes many, many people out of the race, if not most. He believed it was possible for him to do great things. And then he was utterly committed to it, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the things I work with people is what are you committed to? You know, once you understand your purpose, then you can understand, okay, this is what I'm really willing to commit to, being a father, being a leader, being an entrepreneur, having my own company, being a great partner.
Yeah. So he respected relationships, but he had his own way of doing it though. Like he
Oh God,
fired people and hired people, and like he was a little bit not people liked him, right?
I don't think he was without his faults. And I'm not saying he's perfect. I think he could be a real asset at times. But there were qualities in him that were incredible. And it's those qualities that I admire the most.
Absolutely. And like I love what you just said because I'm going to touch upon it. And perfection doesn't exist. The iPhone, they say it's perfect. They keep improving it. So why does
Yeah.
it deserve to be improved? If it's so
Yeah.
perfect, what's the point of upgrades? Well, that's business, right? That's capitalism.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we can talk about that. But the point is that, like, every person is genetically different. Like we can be
Yes.
twins,
Yes.
hypothetically, right? But
Yes.
we're not the same. We will never be the same, and there will never be a Charles Rose. There will never be an Amit Guruprasad. You know
Yes.
why? Because the genetic system is
Yeah.
so intricate beyond our imagination that we have not even touched that.
Yeah.
Same thing with the atom. Same thing with the brains. I love this. Like, go to the bottom level and go to the top. Go to the universe.
Yes.
It
Yes.
doesn't matter. The point is that we will not be the same person we were yesterday because we're improving or we're not improving, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It changes your genetic system too, in a sense.
So the Oxford Dictionary says perfection is having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics. It's as good as is possible. And so to me, that possibility is always growing. If we're continuing to strive to be better and better and better, then we're becoming more and more perfect all the time. So again, that's on the behavioral side. Going back to the parent holding their infant vision, there's a perfection there no matter what. Like you're perfect as my infant, as my child, no matter what. But then your behavior can be imperfect and can be improved as we go through life.
But everyone's behavior can be improved. But that's the thing. This is what makes people people, right? This is why
Oh
Steve
yeah.
Jobs.
Oh
Jobs.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
Imagine if he was like not Steve Jobs, we would not have this. We would not have my iPhone. I would not. This MacBook would not exist.
Yes.
This whole system, this ecosystem would not exist.
Oh, I
Correct or not?
know. I'm on a mini right now. I hear you. And I love it.
I want to touch upon the ecosystem
Yeah.
comment because, like, I'm trying to do the same thing, right? In terms of medical technology,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. There's ecosystems out there, but it's siloed.
Right.
It's siloed to the point where it's like, look, Apple's a tech company, but they're not a med tech company. They want to get into it because everyone's jumping on that board. And I'm
Hmm.
sorry to be selfish. I got to touch upon myself for 1 second, but the point is that there's a lot of value to be vertically, horizontally integrated.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is not some religious thing. I'm doing this now, but there's a mechanism, right? There's a mechanism to do it, and I want to achieve that because this is not about giving technology to people to say, "Oh, go on Instagram or go on these apps and do X, Y, Z things." But it's like patience, safety, and efficacy. It's very
Hmm.
powerful.
Hmm. Definitely.
And then go one step above. Look what Elon Musk is doing. People don't like Elon Musk. People don't like a lot of people. Because they're going to judge. People don't like me. It's okay. Always going to be haters. There's
Hmm.
always going to be lovers and people who want to follow you so strongly because they believe in you, right?
Yes.
And that's Steve
Yes.
Jobs, it's Elon Musk.
And
That's their
I
own.
believe the reason people follow you is because something in you and your belief resonates with them. Something in you responds to that and feels a kinship. So I would always advise people to follow that, investigate that when you feel inspired by somebody.
Yeah, I'm inspired by a lot of people. My
Same.
dad, my mom, my brother, my uncles, the way they came to this country, the way they strived, the way
There's a
they still.
fearlessness to that story.
Yeah, well, here's one thing that I really love about my family is that the way they taught me the language called Kannada, which is of the state Karnataka, where
Hmm.
my parents and my uncles and aunts hail from, Bangalore,
Okay.
right?
Cool.
And I can speak that language um, without an accent.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's one of those rare things that I really try to not call it marketing, whatever it is, but I love it though.
Hmm.
I try to own that more than my English.
Hmm.
I'm not saying my English is saturated. I'm not Edgar Allan Poe. I used to live in Baltimore, by the way. The Ravens. I love the Ravens.
Oh,
But
totally.
yeah. But the point is that I would love to do that for my kids one day. I don't have kids, but the point is that it's very powerful to kind of give that special sense of skill set
Yes.
when you're so young. Correct or not?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and you will because it's just you being you. And you're already very curious in the world and you'll model that.
Yeah. And I know people within like our family cultures and like they're different languages, but they want to teach the kids both languages. How powerful is that? In very
Very. I wish I'd
systematic way.
learned more when I was younger, for sure.
Yeah. I wish I yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean like I would say to cap this conversation off, just what is the take home message for folks? Like, you work with a lot of these people and when I say people, these are influential people in their own ways. It doesn't matter how big, large, how much money you have, but like what the impact you're making. But like, how do you identify these folks that you want to work with versus not want to work with? Is that a fair question?
Of course. In terms of who to work with, I think a lot of times they self-identify. you have to be ready to be open. You cannot be coached if you're not open. And usually, how do they find that? Usually it gets down to a point where people create strategies to survive in life. You know, we all create our systems and our schedules so that we can kind of get through our days and see to all the different responsibilities we have. Well, that becomes a pattern, and that pattern becomes your life. And what I'm here to say is you can change that. There's probably a whole other life that's possible that you could grow into if you had the courage to look at it. And that's the opportunity, is just consider starting to open to, even to yourself, that there may be a different way of living than you've been living and doing business.
It's very powerful words, because I think I hope my audience hears this, because like I think, I tell this over and over again, like there's a lot of people out there who reach out to me saying like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
Don't do next, do now.
I love that.
Now.
Yes. Yes.
Like, just like put something on paper.
Yeah.
Make an effort, because
Yeah.
I don't want to reach out to Charles Rose unless I have something on paper. Then I need Charles Rose.
Mm.
Right? Then I need someone to actually support me in a way where I have something to go, because I will say that ideas are all bullshit
Mm-hmm.
until you execute the idea.
Right.
Brian Chesky, Airbnb. I'll give you a million examples. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
But the point is that, like, you have to start somewhere to get to that next level, and to get to that next level.
Absolutely.
Fail again. Fail one more time. You know why? Be 1% better the next day.
Yes. Yes. And there's a fearlessness to that, of just stepping into the unknown, like taking 3 bicycles around the world, or coming to North America from India. There's just courage. It's just like, you know what? I want to try something else. I'm willing to live in another way, and I'm willing to think differently.
Yeah. My dad's got a lot of influential power in terms of his mindset, the way he was, and like, well, genetic. I don't know. I don't think I have the influential power right now, but hopefully I'll get to that one day. But to do that in that time where information was not very uh, prevalent, especially with technology, the internet, all these things, social media, Snapchat.
Definitely. My stepson has taught me about Snapchat, so yes.
Tweet storms.
Oh my God. Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Well, and the lenses on Snapchat.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, but it's one of these things that I respect those people that have kind of given me that power to be who I am today. And I would say for you to be on this platform with me and giving your time, I respect that. And I would say thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Amit. I really appreciate it. And I very much appreciate your time. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Have a blessed day.
You too, man.
Go Yankees and Mets. People are gonna judge me for that too, by the way. My uncle, I know my uncle is waiting in Westbury to judge me. He's like, dude, you're a Yankees fan. Why are you talking about that? You know what? That's a New York thing. We love it. We love to support that. The Mets are resilient.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Take it easy, Charles, and thank you so much.
You too, brother. Great to see you, and this was fun. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
All right. Cheers.